Want to know how to go faster in your business? Here is how I pay for speed. This has been one of my biggest strengths that has helped me go fast in business. People are always asking, how do you move so quickly? Have you blown up so fast, right? Today I'm going to break down what that looks like. If you're new to me, welcome. My name is Stacy Tuschel. I help small business powerhouses get more customers in the door, more profit in their pocket, and more happiness in their home through well-oiled operations, teaching you how to scale in a simplified way. Now, this conversation was actually inspired by a sales call we didn't close. Somebody jumped on wanting to buy our product, but then they said they weren't making enough profit yet to buy and that they really wanted to wait until they were ready, right? How many times have you said that? Now, they were big Dave Ramsey fans and knew that I was too. So they assumed I would be supportive of this answer. Now, I wasn't the one on the call. I wish I was, because I probably would have jumped right into this. But here's the thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I really do like Dave Ramsey. He has changed my life. I mean, it is something that has been incredible for us financially. But I don't live by every single word he says. In fact, I have a few different opinions when it comes to the business side of it. So I have a business credit card. That is a big no-no in the Dave Ramsey world, right? We don't have debit cards. We have credit cards. I take my vacations on credit card points. Now, I get why he says it. I totally understand. However, I pay my credit card off every single month. I have no problem with it, right? But some people don't. So that's why he says it. I have two commercial buildings with mortgages. He advises that you wait until you buy that building in cash, right? Now, I think in theory, his stuff makes a lot of sense and it definitely makes you more secure. Like, by no means am I disagreeing with him on this. I was definitely very, very nervous when the pandemic hit. Not just nervous, I mean, I was terrified when the pandemic hit and I realized that I had two commercial buildings that I had personally guaranteed, meaning if I couldn't pay the mortgage because my business wasn't bringing in money, at some point they would take those buildings away from me. And not only that, because I personally guaranteed them, I could lose my house, my car, my everything. So his point is valid. Okay. That was pretty scary. Like, yes, I get why he says do this, because anybody that had that building paid off in full wouldn't have felt the way that I felt in the pandemic. However, both of my buildings are, or at least at the time, were over $1 million. Now they're probably much more than that. Okay. So I have two different buildings over $1 million. I would have had to have spent like 100, or I should say this. So I did not have the cash at the time to buy either one of those buildings. Now, let's say I did follow his model and I just kept waiting. I would have spent, since 2008 in the one location, over $1.34 million in rent in just one of those buildings. Instead, since 2008, every single month, I've been paying down my mortgage and getting equity. Okay. So do I think, man, I wish I would have listened to him and waited? No, because I'm telling you, a big part of my retirement is the buildings that I've had for quite a while now, right? So my point is, yes, I understand why people say that sometimes or they think about it, but I am not a fan of certain things. I think there's a more strategic way, right? There are other people out there like Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, explaining kind of how to use other people's money to grow your wealth. Now, I want you to know that in both of my businesses, I have two performing arts academies, and then I also have my online coaching consulting company. Okay. I want you to know that in both of my businesses, I invested money before I ever had any money, before I ever made any money. And I want you to know this, because if you're following me and you think, oh, she's a huge Dave Ramsey fan, she must do what he does. Please know that that is actually not how I grew my businesses. I pay for speed. I pay to go faster. Why? Because things move so quickly today. The internet moves at lightning speed, right? Marketing messages are changing. Offers need to change. I mean, look at what the pandemic did, right? You've got to go faster. Or by the time you've implemented that thing you finally did, right? That strategy is out of date. So here is how I pay for speed in my businesses. Number one, absolutely hire somebody to help you go faster. Okay. I'm going to stay there for a minute before I go into my next one. So let's just stick with hire somebody to help you go faster. There are a million things you need to do in your business. And unfortunately, some of those things are not something that a CEO should be doing, right? You can hire somebody. Sometimes you can hire a 16-year-old. You could be hiring somebody fresh out of college. You could be getting an intern that wants to trade this for college credit, right? Like there's so many things out there that you could be doing. So I pay for speed by bringing people onto my team. I had hired in both businesses, definitely in the studios. I was hiring before the business was profitable. It was bringing in money, but it was not profitable. I was hiring other dance teachers to help me. I needed to get it profitable by getting me out of the studio in the classroom and get me into more of the admin side, working on the business, not in the business. Now, I started the second business like 15 years later. So in the second business, we weren't producing any income. Okay. I didn't start the way that I started in the dance world. So in this world, I wasn't making any money. And the first thing I did was hire somebody to help me more as like a jack of all trades, but doing some social media stuff, right? Like just getting it started, helping me build out some of the tech in the back end. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. And if I spent all day working on it, versus doing what I do best, I would slow myself down. Okay. So pay for speed. If you can hire somebody, do what you need to do to move forward. Now, next, learn from somebody who's doing what you want to do. So one of my clients just said to me recently, hey, I don't know if I can ask this, but can I have your slides that you just had the other day for something? And I was like, sure, here you go. Now, she is paying to be in my mastermind, right? And she is paying for speed. I do this all the time, like anytime I can, right? I own every course, I own every coaching program, all the things, right? When we want to do something new, we just say, who's the expert? Who's already done this? I am not going to sit here and learn from scratch. Now, could I? Could I go to YouTube? Could I go to podcasts? Could I go on social and just start scrolling? Absolutely. And I utilize free YouTube and free podcasts and all those things, but it is not my core education. Those are bonus. I mean, I was driving, we just road tripped. Oh my goodness. We just road tripped to Florida because our flights were canceled because of weather. So I was like, get in the car, we're going. And in the car, what was I doing? I was actually listening to YouTube channels. I was listening to people's podcasts, right? So I am absolutely utilizing that. But when I want to go faster, I buy people's courses or programs, or I hire them to be my coach or consultant. Why? Because podcasts and YouTube videos, they're these single little thoughts all out of order, right? So one of the things that I was doing before was I was originally using this workout program called Faster Way, and they tell you what to do on your workouts. You don't pick what you're doing today. They deliver it to you. And then I switched, I got a Peloton, and I was like, I don't really need Faster Way's workouts. I'm just going to use the Peloton. So then I got the Peloton, and Peloton is like Netflix. You just scroll and you find whatever you want. And what I realized was I am not smart enough to pick my own workouts. I was doing like very similar workouts, and I was not doing it where it was like, oh, I'm not even working out my arms like ever. I just kept picking leg days because I love leg days. But I'm not smart enough to do that, right? So here's the thing. I ended up going back to Faster Way, and I wanted to make sure they were delivering this, the people who know what they're talking about, who can help me be more well-balanced. I want them just to tell me what to do, right? And all of a sudden, my fitness is going to another level. If you are doing what I just talked about, you're just going to YouTube and you're picking random things, you don't know what you're missing, right? You've got to make sure you find somebody doing what you want to do and buy whatever it is they have, because paying for speed, like unbelievable how much faster you're going to get there. Okay. So, and I'll give you an example too, because I really practice what I preach. Like I said, I buy everybody's stuff. I am not saying this to have you buy my stuff. I am telling you, this is how I work and my brain works. So I started listening to somebody's podcast recently, and it was really good, like a couple episodes in. And that was all it took for me to go, okay, what do they actually do? Like, how do I book a call? I want to learn what they sell. Okay. Now, my friend said, why did you jump in so fast? I feel like there's so much for us to learn on their podcast. Like, I don't know that you need to like go that quickly. Like, I think you could have done this over here. I'm like, no, I believe you're right. I believe I think I'm smart enough that I probably could have heard enough of the podcast and reorganized it myself into what order I think it needed to be done. I think I could have done that. Okay. But I would never have been able to do it as fast as I could have just jumping into the person's program, right? So I did jump into the program and getting to talk to that person. I said, okay, I listened to this one podcast where you said, and they were like, no, 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 that's actually already dated. I want you to, I'm like, okay, so this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Something from 4 months ago could 100% have been the thing to do 4 months ago. But if it has to do with marketing or ads or you name it, it's like, oh, that doesn't work anymore, right? We need to know what is relevant and what is not. Okay. I recently had two powerhouses in my mastermind. And they had been listening for years. Okay. One had been listening for 3 years and never bought until like this week. And then another one, 5 years. 5 years. Okay. First time ever they purchased. Now, I'm very grateful that they finally decided it was time to jump in. But, and I said this to them, like, what was the opportunity cost in waiting a few years? Could they have been a massive, massive success story or testimonial for me 2 years ago? Right. But they thought, no, I'll just keep doing this. Right. So you've got to be really, really careful. Now, what I always tell people is be cheap personally and buy the best professionally. Okay. So I was spending money on like $25,000, $30,000 masterminds when I was still saying no thank you to dinner and a movie with my girlfriends. I was literally selling items on eBay from my home when I wanted to go to a conference for 2 days for 10K. Like I looked so cheap personally, but professionally, if you would have looked at my profit and loss and all of that stuff, you would not have called me cheap, right? So when people say, I'll buy it when I can afford it, the problem is, where has that gotten you so far? When you're finally ready, you won't need the program. You won't need to hire. You won't need, right? You don't get ready and then hire and then buy and then invest, right? You've got to act as if you're already there. All right. So I will say people that say like, well, when I can afford it, I'll invest in this, or when I can afford it, I'll hire a social media manager. Right. And then a year later we check in like, hey, how's it going? What's up? And it's like, they're in the same spot. Okay. We've seen people making $1 million per year and still not profiting or still not paying themselves or paying themselves minimum wage because the bad habits stay. You've got to be super careful if you're going that route, okay? Especially if you're just doing something for 3 years or 4 years or figuring this out on your own. Now all of a sudden you finally get to where you want to be. Hopefully, not everybody does, and now you've got to break all the bad habits of what you've been doing because you didn't know. Okay. In the beginning, I did spend money I didn't have. I did have some credit card debt and personally was loaning myself money before there was profit in the business. Now, what I will say is it was only temporary. Okay. And that was something I knew was I had to be really smart with and really wise with to know like, okay, this is what I'm going to need, but I better get a return on my investment. And I made it my responsibility to get a return on the people I hired, right? Which means you got to hire well. You got to know what you're doing. You got to make sure you're hiring for positions that are going to make you money, not just vanity fluff, like get me Instagram followers. That's not going to do it, right? So it was a temporary sacrifice for long-term gain. Okay. Now today, I have zero credit card debt. There is not a chance I'm going back to credit card debt, right? But in the beginning of my businesses, in the startup phases, yes, I absolutely did spend money I didn't have. And I'm bringing this up because people assume that I would never do that because they know now I'm very anti-debt. I'm very Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, right? So they assume like Stacey wouldn't do that. But I don't want you looking at me thinking all these ideas in your head of what you think I did, and you're trying to model a different way. I didn't do that. Now, I am not saying you should do it my way. I just don't want you assuming that that's the way I did it and you're trying to model me. Okay. Moral of the story, I pay for speed. All right. You just don't know how much time you have left when it comes to your business. Businesses are closing every day. They are running out of cash flow. They are running out of time. They are maxing out their credit cards, right? And the problem is, it's because most of the time they're not being guided. They don't know what they don't know, and they're making bad decisions. It can cost you so much by not investing in people, in processes, in coaches and mentors. Like there is so much out there. You just don't know. I never think I'm smarter than somebody else in a certain category. Like if I know that you are healthier than me, wealthier than me, you name it, and you're giving me advice, I will take it without questioning you because I know your results are better than mine, right? So moral of the story, I pay for speed and I hope you start to consider paying for speed too.